if I were a patient at this hospital, I'd be asking to leave. That is some exorcist behavior, and I'm just not here for it. Doctors and staff apparently reported the woman hadn't been under the influence of any substances. Was she just messed around? Was she in a certain mental state? It's hard to say. There's not a lot of info on this one, but clearly something is going on. A haunted chair, always creepy, especially in a hospital. Reddit user Stalker the Zone posted this video, writing, "This was about a year ago. I do security at a hospital. The chair was on the other side of the hallway on my first patrol, and on my second patrol, this is what I had found. This is really the only time I've ever experienced anything spooky like this. Never really was a believer until this happened." End of post. What you're seeing here is footage of the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, said to be one of the most haunted former hospitals in the world. The most notoriously haunted spot? The Waverly Hills Body Chute, aka the Death Tunnel. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is a former tuberculosis hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. A tunnel was used to transport patients who were dying from tuberculosis without being seen by others. They would be taken out of the hospital through this long, dark passage, which stretched about 500 feet long. The idea was to keep the grim reality of death from affecting the morale of the other patients and staff. Because of this, many people believe that the tunnel still houses the spirits of those who were transported there. I mean, if anything's going to be haunted, it's an old abandoned tunnel that countless dead bodies were rolled through, right? Visitors have reported feeling this strange energy in the tunnel. Some have claimed to hear voices, footsteps, and even cries echoing through the darkness. The tunnel has become a popular spot for ghost tours. It was featured in an episode of Ghost Hunters, and yeah, definitely a place I'd like to check out. What is this person doing? Standing there and filming. Turn around and walk back down the hallway, sir, or ma'am, whoever you are. First thing this reminded me of is that hospital scene from Jacob's Ladder. If you know the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about, and it's not something you ever need to see in real life. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what the person needs. I don't know if this person needs help. All I know is I'd be getting someone else to do it. Not that I should be handling anyone's medical problems, seeing as I'm not a doctor. Anyway, so many questions about this video. Why is this person on a gurney at the end of a dark hallway alone? Why are they moving like that? Where is this? If anyone has any more info on this clip, let us know down in the comments. This creepy photo is taken by a nurse using a surveillance camera. In the image, you can see a dark, crouched figure standing on a patient's bed. It's hard to make out what the thing is, but many have said it kind of resembles your classic cloven foot demon creature. The nurse noticed the shadowy figure moving up and down the patient's body, and just a few hours after the figure was spotted, the patient sadly passed away. This kind of sighting is not totally unique. There have been claims of demon-like figures appearing in hospitals before. Some people believe that hospitals are places where these dark entities lurk, waiting for someone to die so they can drag their souls away. One night, a few nurses decided to explore a floor of their hospital that is supposedly haunted. Patients and staff would report all sorts of strange things going on there, so some nurses figured, what the heck, it's a quiet night, why don't we go up and peek around, and this is what happened. It happens pretty fast, but the curtain does start to move on its own. The nurse was just understandably too freaked out to stand there and keep filming. Then a pen flies off a desk, seemingly on its own, with no accompanying gust of wind or anything like that. And after that, they book it back down the hallway in a panic. This video was getting shared a lot online when it came out, and it's easy to see why. It's not even so much about the supposed paranormal stuff. It's their reactions. They seem pretty genuine. Like always though. What do you all think? If there's one type of place you'd expect to find the Grim Reaper lurking, it is a hospital. In this video taken in October of 2022, a paramedic is filming outside of a hospital as a patient is being brought in. Now unfortunately, this patient died just a couple hours after this video was taken, but nothing about the video itself seems out of the ordinary. The paramedic didn't think so either until he went back and watched the footage later. Take a look at this. A shadowy figure can be seen standing in the hallway that the patient was just rolled out of. Knowing that the patient died right after this, it's hard not to imagine this could be some sort of dark entity, an omen of death. A lot of late night security guards claim to have some pretty eerie experiences, but in hospitals, I mean, it must just be a whole other story. Not a job you'd want to do if you're a believer in the paranormal. In this video, a security guard at a hospital in Argentina was alone at the front desk late at night. We watch as the automatic doors open, only there's no one there. The guard obviously notices the doors open. He gets up to check it out. Now, watching the video, your first thought is, why does he get up and walk over? Clearly there's nobody there. It gets even weirder when he starts talking to thin air. Well, according to the guard, he wasn't talking to thin air. He even allows this invisible presence into the hospital. Now, after the incident, the guard claimed he saw a woman who told him she'd left something in her room, so he took her name down and let her in. But he was chilled to the bone when the staff showed him this footage, especially when they told him that the name he'd written down was a woman who had passed away just the day before, in the exact room she said she'd been staying in. Up next, we have the ghost nurse. Now, based on the dialogue behind the camera, it looks like these two were patients and were running around one night in the dark after having spotted some sort of entity. They're clearly in a panic right from the get-go, and right at the start of the video, we see what looks like a nurse peering out of the window. The pair decide to continue creeping around in the dark in search of the ghostly nurse, remarking on how the place seems to be empty. And then, this happens. Alright, gotta admit, it's hard not to laugh at this dude's scream. Now, for as loud as this man's scream is, though, he's brave enough to give a war cry and then run to the hallway to try and catch a glimpse of whatever this thing is again. But when he turns the corner, all we see is a dark, abandoned hospital hallway. A brave man indeed, a loud man, but a brave man. Not sure how good he'd be to have around on your ghost hunting team. He'd probably go deaf by the end of the night, and he'd probably scare all the ghosts off, but at least he'd be willing to run up on a ghost like he were about to skewer it with a musket. Wherever this place is, by the way, it's creepy. No doubt there's a ghost or two lurking somewhere in those hallways. Did someone capture a shadow person on camera lurking over their bed? This video comes from Carrie E on YouTube, who noticed something terrifying on her home smart camera. Clearly, there's this dark black shape standing in the corner of the room. And, you know, at first I didn't really think much of this. I mean, it's not hard to put on some dark clothes and lurk in a corner, but then it moves, and that's when you notice just how unnatural this thing really is. It zips across the room so fast, and in such a smooth, unnatural motion. This is clearly not a person. On top of that, watch how blurry it becomes. It doesn't look like a solid mass anymore. If you've ever had sleep paralysis and felt like something was standing over you or sitting on your chest and restricting your breathing, well, this video probably ain't gonna help you sleep any better, so sorry about that. Did you ever have an imaginary friend growing up? Do you have pleasant memories of said imaginary friend? Well, this next story may make you look back on your childhood a little differently. This photo here was shared online years ago. It looks pretty innocuous, two kids playing, but the thing is, there was only one youngster present at the time. At least that's what the parents thought. They were watching their son playing in the living room, saying he was talking with his imaginary friend Pauline. Dad snapped a picture, and when they looked back at it, they nearly screamed. Something else was clearly in the room, at least the camera picked something up. And the closer you look at this mysterious figure, the creepier it becomes. The eyes, the smile. Not only does it look unnatural, it has this air of aggression about it. Pretty creepy photo. So this happened back in January in Texas, just outside of Dallas. Two homeowners were left terrified after someone showed up at their house wearing a red satanic mask and holding a cardboard sign that said Revelation 21:15. If you know that Bible passage, it's all about the apocalypse, judgment day, that kind of thing. So the devil mask is bad enough, but it's really not the message you want showing up right on your front porch. The whole thing was caught on their doorbell camera. It happened around 8 p.m. on a Saturday. You could see the person dressed in all black standing there a few feet from the door, completely still. They ring the doorbell, wait a few seconds, then knock, and when no one answers, they just walk around the side of the house and stand there in the driveway, still holding the sign. The homeowners were not home at the time. They'd gone out to dinner, but they saw the footage later and they freaked out. "I'm scared," the homeowner told CBS. I'm scared to leave the house. I'm scared to be at the house. She also said, it's about the end times. It's about Judgment Day. I freaked out. Police looked into it and said the masked person hadn't been seen at any other homes in the area and technically didn't commit a crime. Still, they said they'd keep an eye on the neighborhood just in case. And a little message to viewers here. Probably not the best idea to knock on some random person's door wearing a devil mask in Texas. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, just what kind of animal are we looking at here? According to the uploader, it wasn't an animal, at least not one he'd ever seen. Reddit user Corrine James posted the image along with a description reading, EMT friend saw this 2 nights ago, turning his ambulance around at the end of a rural road. It was swaying and its eyes were glowing without the headlights. This was in central Kentucky. Now, interesting thing about Kentucky, it's the home of the Pope Lick monster, aka Goat Man. So, a terrifying part man, part goat hybrid with glowing red eyes. I don't know, am I drawing the wrong connections here? Am I crying? I don't know, but what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. All right, so this video comes from a TikToker named Anelli_RG. Her actual name is Mariana. She took the footage at her church in Mexico. According to her, she always felt a strange, unsettling vibe whenever she was there. Nothing specific she could point to, just a general sense that something wasn't right. So one day she decided to record during Mass to see if she could capture anything unusual on camera, and she did. When she reviewed the footage, she noticed someone or something that she doesn't remember seeing in person at all. It stands out immediately. In her description, she said it wasn't a human, and honestly, it's hard to disagree. The figure looks pale with dark, almost hollow eyes, almost like some lifeless mask. It's not just a case of bad camera quality either. Everyone else in the shot looks completely normal. So what's going on with this ghoulish looking figure? What would you do if you were working overnight security and saw this person show up on your surveillance camera? I say person, but I mean, look at her, it looks more like a zombie to me. So, a school in Mexico, this security guard was on an overnight shift when he looked at the surveillance camera by the entrance of the building and saw this unsettling looking person staring up at the camera trying to get inside. The glowing eyes, the unusually long looking arms, this is not what I would want to see trying to break into my workplace in the middle of the night. Again, I'd think a zombie invasion was breaking out. This image was posted to Reddit by Dystopia321, who wrote, "This is a camera set up in the woods, set up to take photos when it senses movement. Main purpose is to take photos of deer and other wildlife. There were no people that could be in the woods at the time, and it had to have been moving to set off the camera. What is this?" Well, I can't say exactly what it is, but I can say it doesn't look good. A rake, a skinwalker, Wendigo, golem. All possible identities mentioned in the comments, and I don't know, those seem like good guesses to me. What a horrifying looking creature. Could it be some extra tall, thin, pale person skulking through the forest alone in the middle of the night? Sure. But that's not really a comforting thought either, is it? What do you all think of this one? This one legitimately gave me chills, because it took me a few seconds staring at the image before I saw it, but when I did, yeah, just no thank you. Reddit user OrangeFood87 shared the picture saying that back in 2012, their roommate received the image from her boyfriend. He was working at a body shop after hours and snapped a photo of this totaled car that had just been brought into the shop. He was alone at the time and didn't see the eerie figure until he looked back at the photo. Apparently, he closed up early that night, and I can't say I blame him. This picture was taken at the South Pittsburgh Hospital by Reddit user Just Okay at Life, who wrote, "Taken in the second story shadow hall where they report a 7-foot tall shadow figure. This was taken at the end of the night. There was one other guy with me, and he was in front of me to the left. He had the flashlight, so there's no way this shadow was either of ours. If you have a chance and you happen to be in Tennessee, I highly recommend visiting this place. Earlier in the night, I was walking down a dark hallway alone on the first floor, and from the left side of me, there was a doorway where I heard a hissing sound shoot out of one of the rooms, moving towards me. It was an incredible experience. Incredible experience, that's one way of putting it. Our final clip today comes from Saudi Arabia. YouTuber Adventures Jassim79 was doing what he does best, exploring a creepy abandoned place. This time he was walking through an old rundown house, and when he got to the roof, he caught something incredibly chilling on camera. As he passes by a clothesline, through a small opening between sheets, this ghoulish face with pure black eyes appears. Just as fast as it shows up though, it thankfully vanishes. Yeah, I'd be praying too if I saw that face poking out at me. Seeing as this is in Saudi Arabia, many viewers have commented that this could be more than just a ghost, but a jinn. Spirit-like beings from Muslim tradition that can be invisible, shapeshift, and sometimes exhibit a more classical kind of demonic behavior, tormenting people or in some cases, even possessing them. Genuine or not though, it's a pretty creepy video. So you wake up one morning to find holes in your garage door. You check your security camera to see what's going on, and while skimming through the footage, you see this. Now, I can't find the source of the original video here, so if any of you can, please let me know down below. But my god, whatever the hell this thing is, it doesn't appear to be human. I think if I saw holes in a wooden door in my backyard, I might think it was a raccoon, maybe a large rat. But Gollum? I think that's the last thing I'd be expecting or wanting to see. The pig demon. Take a listen to this before I give you all the backstory. Can you make that out? Sounds a lot like someone saying, I have the body of a pig. Which wouldn't be so freaky if anyone in the room had said that they remembered hearing it or that they'd said it themselves. But nobody did. It wasn't until they looked over the footage later that this audio came up. This video was uploaded to YouTube by Devin Raymond, who wrote in the description that the recording was an EVP or electronic voice phenomenon picked up in a secret location during his tenure as a special guest and resident expert with a group that he can't disclose. Now, the EVP on its own is pretty disconcerting, but check out what they caught on camera later on. While filming into a dark crevice, they picked up this still image right here. Definitely would have been disturbing in person, or even going back and looking at the footage you'd taken earlier knowing you were right there with whatever this thing was. But I like the fact that this demonic spirit or ghost or whatever it may have been would just announce to everyone, I have the body of a pig. You look at it, it's like, I guess, yeah, you do look a little piggish. This next video comes to us from Reddit user Kipper2. Take a look. Now, pretty much everyone in the comments, including me, is saying this is a reflection on the window coming from inside the house. And while you could say it's just someone standing behind the camera person, take a closer look at the reflection. That looks like the demon face that shows up at the end of Skinamarink. Just what the hell is that? It looks almost like two faces kind of attached together. Kipper2 also gave some context in the description, writing, a family member of mine shared this live photo she took of a deer in her and her husband's front yard. The two of them lived alone in this old southern farmhouse, previously owned by an older gentleman who had passed away in the home. She'd complained a few times about hearing walking in the attic. It wasn't long after this photo that they decided to move out. And yeah, best not to take your chances and just get out of there. See what happens when you mess with Ouija boards? Take a look at this. This video was posted to YouTube by Ouija Warning, a very apt name for a channel with a video like this. In the 2 or so minute clip, we watch as a group of girls and dudes mess with a Ouija board. One woman in the video, the one who ends up freaking out at the end, is laughing and joking the whole time as the planchette begins spelling out Zozo. She then asks if the spirit's name is Zozo, and when the planchette moves to yes, she begins to laugh again. Only this time, her laughter becomes less joyful and more hysterical, in a pained, panicked sort of way. Now, I've talked about Zozo on the channel before, a demonic entity said to haunt Ouija boards. An entity so malicious it's been known to cause physical harm on those who are unfortunate enough to run into it. Basically, if you're playing with a Ouija board and you end up contacting an entity and the letter Z or Z, depending on where you live, comes up at all, just stop right there. It's such a rare letter, unless you asked it what its favorite anime is and the words dragon and ball came before, just don't take your chances. The Valentine ghost. This footage was taken in the Valentine Museum in Victor, New York. Take a look. On April 21st of 2006, paranormal investigation was being carried out at the museum. Now, the quality of this footage isn't great, but you do see what looks like a semi-translucent figure walking out of the shadows and past the camera. This has actually become a rather famous piece of footage in paranormal circles as well, because apparently it's never been fully definitively explained. According to the New York Haunted Houses website, the historic Valentine Museum was built in 1879, originally called Valentine Hall. It's a 5-story building which is now a museum with thousands of old artifacts and a good number of ghosts. Spirits have been known to play an old-fashioned music box, move tools around in the basement, and people have even seen full-blown apparitions. So, is this strange figure in the video one of these ghosts? Let me know your thoughts down below. This image right here comes from Reddit user According Pangolin84, who writes, "I'm not familiar with ghosts and paranormal things, so I don't know the logic behind anything, but I came across this old photo I have from a haunted mansion in Utah. This place was a hot spot to break into during high school, and my friends did it and wanted a photo while I stayed back in the car. The figure in the back is what I suspect to be some kind of ghost. I only had 2 friends go in the house for a photo." The Reddit user also gave some context about this haunted mansion itself in a follow-up post, writing, "It's called the Benjamin Pump House in Utah. It has no electricity and is pretty much empty on the inside besides garbage. Growing up, I heard a lot of stories about scary interactions in the house, people reporting footsteps and the feelings of being watched. As far as my friends and what they felt, all I can recall is them talking about what sounded like someone walking through the brush around the house, and there was a weird creaking that also circled around the house, but nothing in relation to being watched or feeling like there was someone else in there." This image here was shared by Reddit user PositiveCable1487, who writes, "Earlier this month, my sister and her partner went to the Stanley Hotel. Don't know the backstory on the mirror, but apparently there are many reports of sightings in it. This is the photo my sister took. She said the mirror was squeaky clean in person, no smudges." Now, this image may not be all that creepy on its own, but the Stanley Hotel definitely is. Let me tell you fine folks about it. The Stanley Hotel is famously the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. He'd been snowed in there with his family in 1974 while on a trip to the Rocky Mountains National Park. They happened to be the only guests there and found the place rather eerie. And King isn't the only guest to have found the place unsettling. Tons of people have reported spooky encounters at the hotel, like the ghost of a woman named Mrs. Wilson, former chambermaid, said to haunt room 217. Staff have reported hearing sounds of people dancing and laughing in the ballroom, only to find nobody there. Guests will often report seeing dark figures standing over their beds at night, and it's said that the spirit of the former landowner, Lord Dunraven, will often be seen staring out the window of room 407. From TikToker Ahab Kasmaya1 comes a terrifying encounter he had while exploring an abandoned building. He's filming down a dark hallway when suddenly a knocking sound is heard off camera, and when the urban explorer pans to take a look, this is what happened. Now, instead of screaming at the top of his lungs and running away at top speed, the brave man begins praying instead, and the entity retreats back into the shadows. Which, you know what, hey, seemed to work great and all, but here's another idea: just don't be there in the first place. You win every fight you walk away from at the end of the day. Reddit user HealthyMagician895 posted this series of images here, along with a description reading, "I was messing around in my mom's room taking a video when my friend pointed out something at the corner of the door. At the end of the video, I went back to the mirror, but it was gone. Can somebody explain this? I'm genuinely creeped out." And yeah, fair enough. I'd be genuinely creeped out too if I saw that thing peeking out at me from the doorway. Here's what's interesting about this photo too. It reminds me a lot of a video I shared in part 1. If you'd like to watch part 1, by the way, link is in the description. But just for a quick comparison, check this out. Yeah, pretty eerily similar. Even the positioning. What do you all think though? Hoax? Or is there a ghoulish demon thing crawling around people's houses and peering out at them from the tops of door frames? I certainly hope not. Imagine hearing a noise in your hallway at 3 a.m., going out into your hallway to check it out, and spotting this. This one comes from TikToker Official Empty Alien. I don't even care that's not real. I had to throw it on here because that is some fuel for your nightmares right there. The long fingers slowly creeping into frame. I think that's what really does it for me. This is pretty much the exact face I'd scare the crap out of myself, imagining it as a youngster popping up in a window or glaring at me from the bottom of the stairs at night. It's kind of uncanny actually too. The white face, the glare, the big eyes and the teeth. I don't know, it's always what I'd imagine for whatever reason, and then I'd be up all night. Fun times. So this is security footage of a car plowing into a police station. Luckily, it wasn't a robot from the future looking to terminate anyone in the building though, just a dude in a blouse with no pants ranting and raving that he was possessed by the devil, throwing rubber snakes all around the place. Guess what state this happened in? It's Florida. So in June of 2024, a 40-year-old man named Joseph Leedy made headlines in Martin County, Florida when he drove his Toyota sedan straight into the lobby of the Martin County Jail. The cops found Leedy wearing only a woman's blouse with no pants. He'd poured motor oil on the floor and threatened to set the place on fire. Leedy also threw rubber snakes onto the floor and made disturbing statements, including that the, quote, devil told me to kill everyone. Deputies, of course, tried to subdue Leedy as he resisted arrest. Even after being tased and given multiple doses of medicine to try and calm him down, he still wasn't cooperating. Leedy was eventually restrained though, and taken to a hospital where he just kept yelling and screaming. Fortunately, no one was injured during the incident as the lobby was empty at the time. This next eerie clip comes out of Mexico. A teacher was captured on a security camera one night marking some papers when he started to act strangely. See, according to him, the mother of a student came to the classroom door and they had started having a conversation, but everyone was confused because the only person on camera was him. The teacher said that this parent came to the door and asked him for a student, who of course wasn't there. The school day had ended. He then said he watched as the mom walked to an adjacent room, at which point he got up to speak to her more, but when he got to that room, he found it was completely empty, and there was no sign of the woman anywhere in the hallway either. Suddenly, it dawned on him that something was just off about this whole situation, at which point he decided to grab his stuff get the hell out of there. Now this may be one of the most famous instances of a possible possession captured on security footage. The woman in the clip is named Debbie Berman. She was on a ghost hunt, part of a team investigating one of the most haunted houses in Britain, a place called The Cage in St. Osyth, Essex. It used to be a prison for women accused of witchcraft back in the Elizabethan era. 8 of these supposed witches are said to have died there. Well, the ghost hunting crew decided that they were going to stay overnight, and at around 3 a.m., while they were in the master bedroom, said to be the most active room in the house, something strange happened. Debbie started acting weird. Well, more like her face started acting weird, morphing into this twisted, ghoulish grin, her eyes turning pitch black, and it was all caught on one of the security cameras they'd placed in the room. Lead investigator Brad Mack was pretty shaken up, saying she looked totally unrecognizable. And things got even freakier when Debbie said that her back was burning. She lifted her jacket and there were 4 deep scratches down her back. Nobody was near her, nobody touched her, at least no one the team was able to see. There's this wild piece of footage out of Brazil that started making the rounds back in 2017. It was recorded at Miguel Couto Municipal Hospital in Rio de Janeiro, and honestly, it's one of the creepiest things ever caught on camera inside a hospital. So this guy shows up with a bullet wound to the face, and instead of lying down and waiting for help like a normal injured person, he starts wandering the halls. But it's not just stumbling around, he's walking like he's being taken over by something. His back is all rounded back, his arms and legs are jerking in these weird, unnatural ways, and he's screaming, but it doesn't sound exactly like screams of pain. Instead, it almost sounds like he's exhilarated, being controlled by someone or something else. Security guards managed to capture some of the altercation on camera. There was no official word from the hospital about what actually happened. They never released a diagnosis, never explained it medically. Any level-headed person would, of course, assume he was on something, but without context, you'd probably think this was behind-the-scenes footage of a zombie movie or something. In York County, Pennsylvania, a mom of 4 named Amanda Pitt caught something really weird on her security camera. It rattled her so badly, her family started thinking about moving. So at 3:40 a.m. on October 21st of 2023, Amanda had been sleeping when she suddenly woke up to the sound of heavy footsteps inside the house. Naturally, she checked her security camera feed, expecting to see her husband or maybe one of the kids moving around, but no, what she saw was something else entirely. "I made sure Jeffrey was still in bed because I thought it could be him," she said. "I checked on the camera and stared at it for a little bit because I thought I saw somebody." On the feed, there was this blurry, ghostly figure just standing in the doorway of her kitchen, not walking, not moving, it was just there. Totally freaked out, she shook Jeffrey awake and told him to go check it out. He crept downstairs, and there was nothing. No open doors, no broken windows, there was no sign of a break-in. But their dog, Ollie, was acting sort of weird, pacing the kitchen, clearly shaken up by something. Amanda couldn't shake the feeling. She stayed up the rest of the night, glued to the TV, trying to calm herself down, but that image was burned into her brain. "I couldn't go back to sleep. I laid there and turned on the TV because I was scared," Amanda continued. "I kept going back to the camera, but I couldn't see it anymore, so I thought maybe I was seeing things. The next morning, I didn't even know what to make of it." She kept a screenshot of the ghostly figure just to prove that she wasn't going crazy, but even with the photo, she still kept checking the camera again and again, trying to convince herself that she'd just imagined it. Thing is, this wasn't the only time something strange had happened in the home. "Things have happened here before," Amanda said. "The people who lived here before didn't live here for very long, but we never found out why." Amanda and her family moved in back in 2020, and weird stuff started happening almost immediately. She'd get camera alerts on her phone when no one was home. Doors would open on their own. The kitchen sink turned itself on one time. "I've never been a ghost believer, but we've had things happen that make us question it," she admitted. "That picture is terrifying. Thinking there's something like that in your house, you question everything." Well, if the dead ever did start rising from their graves and we had a real-life zombie situation on our hands, I imagine it would look something like this. This is some doorbell camera footage of a man trying to break into a house. I don't think this guy lives here. Now, obviously he's on something, right? Or a concoction of substances, but my God, it does look like a zombie. The raggedy clothing, the scrapes and bruises all over his body, how lanky he is. It looks like he was just bitten by a walker from The Walking Dead. He's so out of his mind that he starts violently throwing himself into the door, and he hits it so hard that he eventually just falls backward, having nearly knocked himself out cold. I do not want to think about what this guy would have done if he'd made it inside the home. See if you spot anything creepy about this next clip. Here's some context for this one. So this is surveillance footage from a manga cafe inside a multi-tenant building in Japan. The camera is set up right at the reception counter, capturing footage of the elevator near the entrance. Now notice as the elevator doors open and the man exits the doors. He's not alone in that small elevator. Right behind him, you can spot this tall woman in a red dress. At first, it doesn't look all that unusual, but take a closer look. Doesn't she look almost freakishly tall? She'd have to bend down to clear the elevator doors. But maybe she wasn't standing there. To some, it looks more like she's floating in the air. Not to mention that she's completely motionless. The more you look at this clip, the more unsettling it gets. It almost looks like footage you'd see from The Ring. Especially because, according to people in the neighborhood, the woman in the clip, as grainy and low quality as it is to be fair, looked a lot like a woman who'd taken her life in a nearby park not long before this footage was taken. And, of course, we need to talk about the infamous Alisa Lamb case, one of the most unsettling pieces of security footage online. Back in 2013, Alisa, a Canadian student, was staying at the Cecil Hotel in downtown LA. She went missing. No one could figure out what happened to her. Then the LAPD dropped that elevator footage, the one we've all seen. It's only a couple minutes long, but man, it gave everyone the creeps. In the video, Alisa steps into the elevator and starts pushing a bunch of buttons, like all of them, but the elevator doors won't close. Then she starts It's peeking her head out like she's hiding from someone. She moves her hands in this strange, slow motion sort of way as she steps in and out of the elevator, almost like she's playing a game. She also looks like at one point she's talking to someone, but no one else ever appears in the footage. This was all authorities had to work off of. She was nowhere to be found. A couple weeks later, though, hotel guests started complaining that their water tasted funny. Sometimes it would come out muddy and dark. Maintenance checks the rooftop water tanks and, well, there's Alisa's body. But this just opened up a whole Pandora's box. Most of it centered around two very big questions, though. Why was she there, and how did she get in there? The doors were supposedly locked and alarmed, and the tank was not easy to access, especially in the state she was in. The official cause of death was accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder listed as a contributing factor here. Still, that elevator footage has fueled theories for years. Everything from ghostly possession to some sort of cover-up. Maybe someone was there off camera she was hiding from. Well, there are still a lot of unanswered questions about this case to this very day, which is why we still talk about it. Buckland Abbey is a 700-year-old house. It was built on the site of a former abbey, which was sold to Sir Francis Drake after he returned from his circumnavigation of the globe in 1580. But while Francis was a national hero, locals believed that he had only defeated the Spanish Armada because he'd made a pact with the devil. Sir Francis Drake's ghost is believed to ride across Dartmoor in a black coach driven by headless horses led by 12 chattering goblins and pursued by a pack of baying dogs. That is the most metal thing I've ever heard. But it's also kind of terrifying. It's also said that any living dog that hears the spectral hound is said to die instantly. So that's kind of sad. I'd veer away from this place if you have a dog. Egg Hill Church is one of the most haunted churches out there. Legend has it that the crazy pastor of the Egg Hill Church ended the lives of all of his parishioners post-communion, and soon after hanged himself and died as well. Because of this, visitors have reported hearing the cries of victims that died at the hands of the pastor, even though the building remains locked and empty. That wasn't enough. Word has it that the abandoned church and its premises are vandalized and haunted by ghosts. But the interesting thing is, Egg Hill Church did reportedly bear witness to a strange miracle. According to a story, a tornado struck the area during a camp meeting near the church, damaging trees and snapping branches all around. But the tents and the trees at the camp remained intact as people kneeled and prayed during the storm. So could these spirits who are locked inside the church have helped these folks? Who knows? Located in the French Quarter of New Orleans, St. Louis Cathedral is the oldest cathedral in the United States, still in use. The first version was constructed in 1718, and the final version of the cathedral was completed in the 1850s. Because of this long history, St. Louis Cathedral has become home to a number of spirits. One of the most famous ghosts to haunt the cathedral is Pierre Antoine, who served there as a priest from 1774 until his death in 1829. Pierre Antoine famously baptized Mary Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans, and later performed the marriage to her first husband. Antoine's spirit has been seen walking through an alleyway outside the church, named after him, while quietly singing and looking in through the stained glass windows. Other ghosts include Pierre Antoine's predecessor, Pierre Dagobert, the pirate John Lafitte, and even the infamous Delphine Lalaurie. So if you ever go to this church, be prepared to see like a ghost or two. St. Mary's Episcopal Church, Kansas City. Father Henry David Jardine, a controversial Episcopal priest, is believed to haunt his former congregation at St. Mary's Episcopal Church. Henry came to the church in 1879, when it was still St. Luke's mission. He caused controversy by introducing Catholic practices, and there was speculation about him having a troubled past. In 1886, Henry died in St. Louis from an apparent chloroform overdose, which the Episcopal Church ultimately deemed was because of him taking his own life. Because of this, he could not be buried at St. Mary's as he'd intended, and the years since his death, visitors have smelled incense where there is none, and seen a ghostly figure thought to be him looking out one of the second-floor windows. During one paranormal investigation, an electromagnetic field detector went off near the altar, and the apparition of a priest was caught on film. In the year 2000, Jardine's body was moved to St. Mary's, and his final resting place now sits below the church's altar, and you'd think he'd stop showing himself around the church, but he hasn't. Constructed between 1882 and 1885, Most Holy Trinity Church in Brooklyn, along with its adjoining school and rectory, is believed to be extremely haunted. In 1897, church sexton George Stells was a victim of homicide in the church, but the criminal was never caught. Since then, a bloody handprint has occasionally appeared on the wall leading up to the bell tower, which is kinda cool. The school was built in 1887 on the site of the church's graveyard, although all the bodies were said to have been moved to a different location. Ghostly activity makes some suspect that a few bodies remain beneath the school. Yeah, building on top of a graveyard, I don't think that's ever worked out well for people. Always hear creepy stuff happening after that. People have seen lights in the gymnasium turn on and off by themselves for years and heard footsteps when the gym is completely empty. The rectory is also the site of paranormal activity. The bedroom formerly used by Monsignor Michael May, who died in 1895, is rarely used because of his ghost making noises in the room throughout the night. Dogs visiting the rectory have also been known to stare at the main staircase, even though it doesn't appear that anyone is there. But at least they don't drop dead instantly like before. The construction of St. Bartholomew the Great Church began in 1120. Located in what is now West Smithfield, a monk and Norman courtier named Raher was responsible for receiving land and funds from King Henry I to build the church. There's a lot of history contained in St. Bart's, including some stories that are particularly dark. A number of homicides and executions took place on the grounds of the church, including the burning of heretics. And today, several resident ghosts and unnamed entities reside within the church walls. The Duke of Argyll, the painter William Hogarth, and the apparition of a priest have been seen in the church. There's also a white mist that appears in the center aisle of St. Bart's, and some reports indicate the mist forms into the shape of a woman. The positive energy is countered by a black mist that is also seen in the church and is thought to be residual negative energy of all the violence seen at St. Bart's. The church's most famous ghost, though, is Raher himself. The monk has been seen wandering the church, supposedly looking for his foot, which was allegedly stolen from his crypt centuries after his death. Why would someone take a foot? Give that back. That is not nice. Don't steal dead people's feet. It's also said that his ghost appears on the first day of every July at 7 a.m., so that's something. In 1918, a young woman was seen pacing the steps of the First Church of Christ Scientist, located at the corner of 3rd and Ormsby in Louisville, Kentucky. More than a century later, it said her ghost is still seen, pacing and sobbing during the night. This ghost is known as the Lady of the Stairs, or Miss G, which I love. It's believed that Miss G was a member of the prominent Gothrite family, and that her parents attempted to marry her to a much older man after she graduated from high school. But Miss G had already fallen in love with a young man who is currently fighting in World War I. After the war, the soldier, who is believed to be Herbert Fulton Dixon, returned to Louisville, and the young couple planned to leave town and get married in Chicago. That night, the night they were to leave, Miss G went to the steps of the First Church of Christ Scientist, where she and Dixon regularly met. Sadly, Dixon never showed up, and passerby saw a distressed Miss G pacing the steps of the church. As it turned out, Dixon had come down with the Spanish flu and was unable to make it to the church, but the news never made it to Miss G. In a matter of days, both Dixon and Miss G had died from the flu. Miss G's spirit has been seen on the church steps ever since. Sad. It was a sad world before cell phones, right? I got the flu, can't show up, please go home, get out of the cold. As the largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe, the stunning York Minster is believed to date back to 627 AD. With a church that old, there are a number of hauntings associated with the church. One of the most famous is that during the 1820s, two ladies from a tour group going around the church found themselves separated and wandering around the building. They encountered a man in a naval uniform who approached one of the women and whispered in her ear. The story goes that he was the woman's brother, who had died at sea. The siblings had made a pact that whoever died first was to come back and tell the other if the afterlife existed. Another apparition said to haunt the York Minster is Dean Gale, who died in 1702, aged 26. He reportedly enjoys sitting in the pews and listening to the sermons. They sound like friendly ghosts, which is, alright. the Snagav Monastery in Romania. This island-bound church, the Snagav Monastery, seems perfect, but has a dark side. The church is the final resting place for one of the most notorious and bloodthirsty rulers of all time. Founded back in the 14th century, more than just one church has stood upon this island. The original wooden structure was doomed, eventually sinking into the surrounding lake, causing locals to believe the island was cursed. Eventually, this island was to become the resting place for, ladies and gentlemen, Vlad Tepes, better known as Vlad the Impaler, the real-life inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Vlad is said to be buried at the entrance to the church. There is a belief that Vlad had committed more atrocities in his life than any individual ever should, so he was placed at the church's entry so that anyone walking over his grave would have to take some of his sins upon themselves, which doesn't seem fair. There remains some mystery and debate whether Vlad is actually even buried at the church, but the monastery is still said to have ties to Vlad regardless, who had fortifications surrounding the island and a jail and torture chamber on the island itself. In a remote part of South Australia lies an artificial ghost town known as Old Tum Town. This attraction consists of many buildings, most of which are over 100 years old, that had been abandoned and then relocated to this town. There's a massive mix of history and dark events tied to many of these buildings, and some of them are considered to be, of course, haunted. One of the buildings that has gained a reputation for being possibly the most haunted building in Old Tum Town is its church. The Wolseley Methodist Church is feared as countless visitors to the building have claimed to have weird experiences. These include strange sensations, sighting shadow people, and even interacting with a young boy who was thought to have drowned on the property many years ago.
At number 10 is Whitney Cummings and the Trans Ghost. Yeah, this one's super weird. Now, Whitney Cummings had this seriously bizarre experience while hanging out with Kesha at a haunted prison. So picture this, Whitney thinking that she's having this heart-to-heart moment with the spirit, all emotional and deep, when bam, it turns out that it wasn't quite Casper that she was talking to. Kesha spilled the beans on this wild incident, mentioning how Whitney was up there, probably shedding a tear or two, thinking that she was consoling with what she thought was a trans ghost. Meanwhile, downstairs, chaos was unfolding. The demon expert they had with them was losing their mind, yelling for Whitney to get out pronto because it wasn't a friendly ghost. It was a sneaky demon up to no good. Just imagine the sheer confusion and the spooky factor of believing that you're having a heartfelt chat with an otherworldly entity only to find out that you're basically in a face-off with a devilish trickster. Kind of story that makes you think twice about haunted prisons. Lesson learned, not everything in the spirit world has good intentions. Talk about an unexpected plot twist in the ghostly department. At number 9 is Demi Lovado. So Demi Lovado's ghost stories are no joke. She once spilled the beans about her Texas home being a ghost hangout. And not just any ghost, but a chatty one named Emily. Back when Demi was merely 3 years old, she was having a full-on conversations with this invisible buddy. I mean, one might call it an imaginary friend, but it gets even weirder after that. You see, she didn't just talk to Emily, she actually saw her lurking around in her closet. Just picture a little ghost playing peekaboo. Just picture a little ghost playing peekaboo. Pretty hair-raising. Now, Demi's not your average celeb, she's all about the supernatural vibe. She's convinced that she's got a direct hotline to the other side, like she can walk into a room and instantly sense if something paranormal went down there. I don't know about you, but that definitely gives me goosebumps. And guess what? Demi took her ghost game to the next level with her own TV show, Unidentified with Demi Lovado. She didn't just talk to ghosts on the show, she sang with them too. But on the show, she encountered some ghosts that had some serious beef with men specifically. Can you believe that? Even in the afterlife, they've got preferences. Seems like Demi's got more ghost tales than an old haunted house. The supernatural world must really dig her vibes. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is Aussie Osborne. Ozzy Osbourne and his brush with the supernatural, you know, he's not just a rocker with a penchant for the extreme, he's practically a legend in the music world. Ozzy was a part of Black Sabbath, the band that basically set the stage for heavy metal. Their songs weren't exactly nursery rhymes, delving deep into spooky dark themes that left people wide-eyed. Now, even after going solo, Ozzy kept that dark vibe going strong. He crooned about stuff like Mr. Crowley and, well, the song named after the band itself, Black Sabbath. It's like he really embraced that whole spooky scene. Now let's get on to the juicy bit. Ozzy's tales of summoning ghosts and encountering the devil are just mind-boggling. he's not shy about talking about his super spooky experiences. He has shared stories about using a Ouija board to summon a ghost, and even claims to have seen the devil himself just hanging out on the edge of his bed. Now, it's easy to think, come on, Ozzy, really? But whether or not you believe his tales, his life has been anything but ordinary. He's definitely a rock and roll legend, and his whole journey is filled with mystery and darkness. I mean, sure, some say it's all part of his rock and roll persona, but whether it's real or not, adds a layer of mystery to his whole ordeal. Ozzy's life story is like a never-ending crazy train ride through the eerie and bizarre. At number 7 is Lily Collins. Lily Collins had this really intense experience while filming a movie called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. This film is about Ted Bundy, this seriously infamous dude known for some seriously horrific stuff. Now, while playing her role in the film, Lily actually started having these super spooky encounters. This isn't gonna be your typical ghost story, to say the least. She spilled the beans to The Guardian about waking up at precisely 3:05 a.m. every single night. But she wasn't getting up all fresh and rested. No, she'd jolt to vivid flashes in her mind, like scenes from a serious struggle or something eerie like that. Now, instead of freaking out, she took it in stride. Lily figured out this wild theory that at 3 a.m., the barrier between our world and the spirit world is as thin as it gets. Now, she actually believed that these experiences were the spirits of Ted Bundy's victims coming to show support. Like they were saying, hey, we're here for you and we appreciate you telling our story. How bizarre is that? Talk about a spooky but strangely comforting twist in the middle of filming. At number 6 is Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian, right? I mean, she's practically a household name, but the thing about her journey to fame is that it's like a magnet for whispers and gossip. You see, people can't help but wonder if there's more to her success story. Talk of the town is some believe she might have shaken hands with the devil to get where she is. Now let's rewind to that leaked tape. It was the rocket fuel that launched her into stardom. But you've probably heard the rumors. I mean, critics say that her skyrocketing fame seems a bit too convenient. But let's put a pause on that thought, because success isn't always a deal with the devil, you know? I mean, let's talk strategy, because Kim is like a genius in the world of self-promotion. Reality TV, makeup lines, you name it. She's got the secret sauce to make things work. It's not just luck or dark magic behind her triumphs. She knows what makes the audience tick and plays that tune like a maestro. I mean, sure, devilish rumors might float around, but her success is more about her hard work, her smarts, and understanding what keeps people hooked. It's the real magic behind Kim K's ride to superstardom. And number 5 is Nicki Minaj. You know, Nicki Minaj's journey through the music world has been a roller coaster ride filled with controversies and wild moments. People talk about her like she's got some kind of connection to the supernatural, almost as though she's had a face-to-face encounter with Lucy himself. But let's pump the brakes on a bit, because those ideas are kinda tinfoil hatty. So Nicki, with her bold lyrics and fashion sense, has definitely raised some eyebrows. And then there's her alter ego, Roman Zelensky. Some folks got all spooked, thinking that it's a sign of her being taken over and possessed by some dark force, but really, probably just a creative side she brings out in her music, like an actor taking on different roles in movies. So remember that music video for Only? It caused a stir with its eerie visuals. People went all, oh, she's into satanic stuff, but Nicki explained it as her shaking things up, making a statement. It's like using art to challenge norms and get people thinking. So while some say she's had a close encounter with the devil, it's more about her pushing boundaries as an artist. At number 4 is Vanessa Hudgens. Vanessa Hudgens is the High School Musical star, but she's got some seriously eerie stories to tell. At the ripe age of only 8, she had a bizarre encounter with a duck toy. Yeah, just a duck toy. But here's the kicker. See, that just wasn't a normal duck. Instead of sitting there like a regular old toy, it started following her around her house. Now, most of us would have probably freaked out and shut it out, maybe gave the duck a little football punt, but not Vanessa. Fast forward to her talking on the Kelly Clarkson show, and she's spilling the beans about her paranormal experiences. She's opened up about how she kind of put a lid on those spooky incidences because, let's be real, the unknown can be pretty darn scary. But as she grew older, she realized that maybe there's something special about all this ghostly stuff she's been seeing and hearing. She even spilled the beans about using a spirit box, basically a gadget that ghost hunters use to snoop on spirits' chats. At number 3 is Carlos Santana. When we delve into the world of guitar heroes, Carlos Santana's name always pops up. I mean, who can forget his iconic tunes like Black Magic Woman? But you ever heard of the spicy gossip about him supposedly meeting the devil? Yeah, rumor has it that Santana's guitar wizardry doesn't just come from hours of practice. Some folks claim he struck a deal with Lucifer himself for those unreal skills. skills. Now, before we get caught up in the whole supernatural hoopla, take a step back a bit because Santana himself hasn't confirmed any Faustian pacts. His musical journey traces back to his dedication and love for music. Growing up in Mexico and hustling in San Francisco during the 60s, he blended rock, Latin rhythms, and blues into his own killer sound. Now sure, the rumor mill churns out tales of devilish agreement, but the truth is that Santa credits his success to his spiritual beliefs and a profound connection with the universe. So no need for the devil, just a whole lot of hard work and genuine passion for making awesome music. And number 2 is Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg, the rap maestro we all know and love, has been the talk of some wild rumors, especially when it comes to his supposed rendezvous with the devil. Yeah, allegedly the man who brought us hits like Gin and Juice, Drop It Like It's Hot, is supposedly making deals with the Dark Lord. Sounds like a plot from one of those over-the-top movies. But let's dig into it. See, back in 2012, Snoop went through a name change after a trip to Jamaica. He claimed that it was a spiritual awakening that led to his rebranding. But some folks out there, the conspiracy theorists, connect the dots a bit differently. They see it as a sign of some infernal agreement, a way for Snoop to show his allegiance to the underworld cat figure. And then there's his lyrics. They're not exactly church hymns, am I right? Some things that he raps about and his lifestyle have raised some eyebrows, but Snoop has pushed back on all of these claims. He stood firm, saying that he believes in something higher and has a spiritual side. So while the gossip about Snoop might take headlines, his own stance seems to be that it's all just smoke and mirrors. At number 1 is Damson Idris. When it comes to Hollywood, there's always a bit of mystery swirling around, especially when somebody rockets to fame seemingly out of nowhere. And in this whirlwind of celebrity gossip, Damson Idris is a name that's been causing a stir. This guy from Peckham, London didn't just dip his toes into fame. He cannonballed right in with his breakout role in Snowfall. Playing a young substance dealer in the 80s epidemic was no small feat. But then whispers started. Is he really that good, or is there some dark magic involved? Folks started spreading rumors, thinking that he might have made a deal with the devil to skyrocket his way up the ladder of success, pointing fingers at his charm and acting chops, claiming that there's no way he's that good without supernatural help. But hold your horses, let's remember that hard work can pay off big time. His dedication to his craft is undeniable. The guy's been hustling and refining his acting skills for a while now, and maybe that's just what was behind his rapid rise to success. I mean, sure, devilish rumors spice up the story a bit, but maybe, just maybe, it's all about talent and relentless effort paving his way to stardom.
And we're starting things off at number 10 with the Red Ghost. Now, this is actually a piece of footage, not a photo, but like I always say, footage is typically more entertaining anyway. This clip was sent to the YouTube channel Vault of Fear, who shared it online. The name of the church isn't given, nor is the location, but we see the camera person filming the church. Now, they either have terrible cinematography skills, or they're just kind of nervous because they saw something before they started filming. I'm not sure which. They eventually rest on the church altar though, where we clearly see a semi-translucent red figure walk from left to right. It then seems to crouch down before completely vanishing. This could definitely be a hoax, but if it isn't, and this is just what the person captured in camera, it's pretty incredible. Definitely not a trick of the light or anything. That looks like a figure walking across the floor. What do you all think though? Hoax? Genuine? Share your thoughts down below. And leave your comments down below even if you don't have any thoughts on this, and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Nothing to lose. Number 9, spooky figures. Back in 2017, 35-year-old Leah Harrison, visiting Lincoln Cathedral, captured something strange in a picture she snapped. She described the figure as looking like the ghostly figures of a woman and a boy, possibly the ghosts of a mother and son. It's kind of hard to make out these figures. They could definitely just be smudges or pixelation from the camera, but what adds to the credibility possible ghosts caught on camera here is that this church is said to be haunted. With it being constructed all the way back in 1072, the place certainly has a lot of history, so if these mysterious figures are indeed ghosts, then who could they be? Well, there's an interesting tale surrounding this church, and it all started in 1349 during the bubonic plague. As the Black Death swept over the town of Lincoln, the bodies began piling up, and the church, being overrun with corpses, eventually piled a bunch of them in a mass grave next to the cathedral. The spirits of those buried without proper ceremony or blessing are said to haunt the grounds, rising on the anniversary of their burial, forever trapped between heaven and hell. Sticking with Lincoln Cathedral for a moment, let's talk about the haunted well, pictured here. This well is associated with an urban legend surrounding the devil. Now, the well definitely has an old allure about it, being constructed nearly 1,000 years ago, but there's nothing immediately unsettling about it at first glance. But legend has it, if you walk around the well 7 times and stick your finger into one of the holes in the door, the devil himself will cast judgment on you. If you're deemed a good person, you'll simply feel his breath on your finger, but if he deems you a real miserable piece of crap, he'll chomp your finger clean off. What constitutes bad or good to Satan? That's hard to say. I think it's safe to assume, though, that sticking your finger into strange holes is probably not the best idea without knowing exactly what's going on in there. Next, we have St. Mary's Church in Ackenham. St. Mary's Church is rumored to be haunted by the devil. According to local legends, the devil is believed to rest beneath the church, specifically beneath a broken tombstone known as the Devil's Grave. The church, situated in the small village of Ackenham, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, has gained a reputation for supernatural occurrences over the years. The tale goes that the devil himself is said to have chosen this location as his resting place. The focal point of this belief is a particular tombstone within the churchyard, colloquially referred to as the Devil's Grave. And legend goes that disturbing the Devil's Grave could cause the Lord of Darkness himself to rise, inviting malevolent forces into the world. At number 6, we have another St. Mary's Church, this one in Clophill. If I were to conjure up an image in my mind of a haunted church, probably look exactly like this. This 14th century chapel fell into disuse in 1848, and over the years, it's gained a reputation for being a haunted site with possible satanic activity. During the 60s, evidence of disturbing activities surfaced when the church and its grounds were investigated. The walls of the chapel were found covered in graffiti, with occult symbols and ritualistic markings on it. Graves in the churchyard had been disturbed, pointing to possible disturbing activities taking place on the grounds. There are also urban legends associated with this place too. One legend goes that the church is haunted by the devil, mostly because of the orientation of the church altar. And traditionally, Christian churches are constructed to face the eastern direction, symbolizing the direction of the heavens and the anticipated coming of the Messiah. But in the case of St. Mary's Church, the altar faces the southern direction. Number 5, St. Nicholas's Church in Pluckley. If that's not an English sounding name, I don't know what is. Pluckley. Look at this spooky image here. I don't think it gets any more classically gothic horror than that either. St. Nicholas's Church in Pluckley, as well as the town itself, is said to be very, very haunted. The church, dating back several centuries, has become known for its paranormal activity. Legend goes that the churchyard is haunted by various spirits. Visitors claim to have witnessed apparitions and strange occurrences in and around the church. Haunted occurrences range from ghostly figures to unexplained sounds. One of the most well-known spirits said to haunt the grounds is known as the Red Lady, who roams the church grounds at night in search of her stillborn child. Pluckley as a town has also earned quite the reputation, said to be the most haunted village in Britain. The village's population to ghost ratio is very out of whack. It's a small place, but it has 12 known ghosts roaming around it. And at number 4, we have Rouse Church. This is a 12th century sandstone church in the Czech Republic. It's adorned with a peculiar feature above its main entrance, a small stone face believed to depict the devil. The legend surrounding this traces back to the church's construction and involves a local troll. According to the lore, during the church's initial construction, a troublesome troll, one of those in the comments that keeps asking about people's hair, I wonder if this is him. Anyway, this troll, angered by the sound of church bells, consistently disrupted the building process by moving the materials across a stream every night. Frustrated builders eventually abandoned the site altogether, choosing to build the church in its current location nearby. Still discontented, the troll decided to relocate 26 miles northwest to Kullaberg. There, the troll expressed a desire to return home, but claimed he was hindered by what he called the jingling gray mare, a reference to the church and its chiming bells, which he was too afraid to name directly. The church's distinctive stone head above the entrance is linked to this legend. There are 3 main theories about its origin. One goes that it represents Ra, the giant, credited with the church's construction, another associating with Roland, a medieval Christian knight, and the most prominent belief is that it portrays the devil. The idea here is that the devil's face is seen as a protective measure against trolls and malevolent beings. And at number 3, the specter of Newby Church. This image here is very famous, taken in 1963 by Reverend Kenneth F. Lord in the Church of Christ the Consoler, found on the grounds of Newby Hall in North Yorkshire. Reverend Lord had been photographing the church. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but once he developed the pictures, he discovered a mysterious semi-translucent cloaked figure standing at the church altar. Reverend Lord claimed to be alone in the church at the time of taking the photo. The figure in the image looks a lot like a plague doctor or some malevolent type of spirit. It definitely doesn't look friendly, but skeptics quickly dismissed the photograph as a hoax, saying it was probably just double exposure or something. So Reverend Lord sent the photograph to experts to be examined, and according to their findings at the time, the photo showed no signs of tampering. Apparently, at least according to them, the image was genuine. And at number 2, we have Chernobyl Church. Pretty much any photo taken in Chernobyl is going to be eerie, given the context that it's the site of one of the worst nuclear disasters in history, but the abandoned church has to be one of the creepiest abandoned sites. That and the abandoned school probably takes second place. The church is beautiful, but looking at these images, it's hard not to have this strange feeling about it. Human beings are just designed to be a little uncomfortable in big, empty places where there should be people. Falls into that liminal spaces realm of horror. Plus, the church is in the middle, again, of Chernobyl, so apart from the harmful air, you have mutated animals and God knows what else lurking around. Imagine having to spend a whole night alone in this place with nothing but a sleeping bag and a flashlight. Would you do that for like $500? I'd consider it. If anyone wants to offer me like an e-transfer for $500 to like stay in one of these haunted places, I might consider it. That could be fun to film. Finally, though, we have St. George's Church in Czech Republic. This is what this abandoned church looks like now. Built in the 14th century, this Gothic marvel faced abandonment in the 1960s because of structural concerns. People had already thought the place was haunted, but then the roof literally caved in on the place during mass one day, which certainly didn't make people feel any less uneasy about going into the place. Over the years, the church was broken into, vandalized, and robbed. Believing the place was culturally significant, artist Jacob Hadrava stepped in with a unique vision to breathe some life into the decaying church. Instead of the usual restoration, he populated the place, all the empty pews, with ghostly sculptures crafted from plaster. And these eerie figures now sit in this sacred place, frozen in a congregation that blurs the line between art and the supernatural. Stories of a haunting atmosphere within this church still persist today. Some claim to sense an otherworldly presence as they explore the dimly lit space with whispers of ghostly apparitions and unexplained sound.
Coming in at number 10 is Herman the Recluse. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Now, in order to try and escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Now, Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Now, this book is also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Now, the page next to the illustration contains a full description of the kingdom of heaven, and some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, and others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. 9. Oliver Cromwell. In 1651, on the eve of the Battle of Worcester, Oliver Cromwell allegedly met the devil in the woods. An alleged account by Colonel Lindsay, first captain of Oliver Cromwell's own regiment, described how he was taken with Oliver himself into the woods to meet a grave elderly man with a roll of parchment in his hand. This man filled Lindsay with an uncontrollable horror and trembling as he realized who this visitor really was. The aged unknown promised Oliver to have his will then and all things else for 7 years, at which date it would be his, the devil's, turn to complete mastery over Oliver's soul and body. According to the tale, Oliver had argued with the devil over the short span, expecting 21 years. After the bargain was made, Oliver was reputed and have cried out joyously to the colonel, "Now Lindsay, the battle is our own, I long to be engaged." And with remarkable precision, the leader of England's only experiment in Republican government died exactly 7 years later amid terrible storms in September 1658. The psychic. A user online detailed their experience they had with the devil. They said, "A few years ago, I joined a psychic development class. We would hold seances and communicate with dead relatives. I didn't realize that opening myself up to the spirit world would mean communication with dark forces as well as light. For a period of a few weeks, I'd been having strange dreams. I decided to finally hold a seance myself and see who was trying to get in touch with me, and that's when he showed up, Satan. We communicated telepathically for at least half an hour. He said a lot of things I wasn't expecting. He told me God had forsaken our planet, and that's why so many bad things were happening. He said he was disgusted with some of the things happening right now, war, poverty, etc., and was angry that God allowed it to happen. He actually said that he loved humanity and was misunderstood. He wasn't the devil the Bible was talking about. The strangest thing was his appearance. It was not frightening or demonic. To me, he appeared as a young man, no older than 20. He was what most women would consider handsome, around 5'7" and an average build, blonde brown hair and piercing blue-gray eyes. He showed little emotion and was quite factual in the way he spoke. He came across as intelligent, sophisticated, and wise. He had gigantic wings and was surrounded by bright light, almost a completely white aura that radiated out by a few feet. As he appeared, I could hear the most heavenly voices speaking and singing. He was able to mention and recite Bible verses I'd never even heard of or read. Above all else, he did not like to be referred to as the devil. He wants to be known as an archangel and believes that humanity seriously misunderstands him and the spirit world altogether. Number 7. Father Urbain Grandier. In 1632 in Leuton, France, a number of nuns accused Father Urbain Grandier, a Catholic priest, of bewitching them and sending a league of demons to commit vile acts with them. They even had the names of the demons. Now, a trial was quickly conducted by the church and the priest was questioned. During the trial, he was accused of having sexual relationships with many women, and then a document was produced in front of the judges, which was allegedly the contract that Urbain had made with the devil. It had not only the signature of Urbain, but also the signature of several demons, including the devil himself. The contract was written backwards in Latin and translated to the following: "We, the influential Lucifer, the young Satan, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Elmi, and Astaroth, together with others, have today accepted the covenant pact of Urbain Grandier, who is ours. And him do we promise the love of women, the flower of virgins, and respect of monarchs, honors, lusts, and powers. He will go whoring 3 days long. The carousel will be dear to him. He offers us once in the year a seal of blood. Under the feet he will trample the holy things of the church, and he will ask us many questions. With this pact, he will live 20 years happy on the earth of men, and will later join us to sin against God, bound in hell in the council of demons." Now, due to this, Father Urbain Grandier was later burned at the stake for charges of witchcraft. Number 6. Several meetings. When asked if anyone had ever met the devil, this online user said, "Yes, several times. Meeting and talking with him is not very pleasant. He has a very cold presence. He spoke always with a hint of disdain, like he was constantly mocking. I think I only saw him once where he was being candid, and then I'm probably wrong, and he only wanted me to think that. Either way, it was not my idea of fun to be sitting in the same room with a serious Satan. Now that I think back, I wonder if he puts up a comic front to try to get you to think that he isn't as grim as a person as he really is, using humor as an illusion for warmth. He is definitely a master of distraction and deception, and it can be confusing to talk with him, and I wouldn't recommend trying. Overall, it wasn't the happiest of circumstances I found myself in." Number 5. Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson was an American blues musician from the early 20th century who, as legend has it, acquired his musical powers from a midnight deal with the devil. Born in 1911, Robert grew up alongside the Mississippi Delta. As a young man, he yearned for musical greatness and one night took his guitar to the crossroads in hopes of conjuring dark forces. The devil appeared and took Robert's guitar, played a few songs, and then handed it back, granting the young musician complete mastery of the instrument. The story thus explained Robert's extraordinary skill. It also led to rumors that Robert's drooping eye spoke of an infernal connection, and that he turned away from his audience while performing to hide the presence of evil. Now, Robert did very little to discourage these stories. If anything, he played into it with lyrics such as, "Early this morning when you knocked upon my door, and I said, 'Hello, Satan, I believe it's time to go.'" Now, in 1938, he died under mysterious circumstances at the age of 27. Some say he succumbed to syphilis, others poisoning, whereas others contended it was the devil himself collecting his due. 4. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. In the 1500s, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa was a scholar who devoted his life to writing about the occult. In his books, he mentioned the devil a lot and breaks down exactly how witches perform magic spells. You may be wondering how exactly he got all his information, and well, he claimed that when he was a young man, he gave in to the temptations of the devil and learned how to perform magic by following around groups of witches. He apparently then found Jesus and managed to save his own soul. He wrote his books in order to teach others to keep the devil at bay. During his lifetime, he published 8 huge books about the occult. Even though he was so public about being friends with the devil, he was never put to death for witchcraft. Perhaps he was seen as publishing such valuable information on how to battle the devil, they just wanted to keep him alive to learn more. While it would seem that he would have been promoting witch hunts in the church, he actually pushed for people to be more sympathetic and understanding. He wanted to try to help save them from the devil's grasp and have God save them through prayer, rather than burning them at the stake. Lifesaver. Another online user had this to say when it came to meeting the devil. "It actually wasn't that scary, he actually saved my life. I was being attacked by a bunch of demons and he literally snapped his fingers and blew them up. I can't get him to go away now. Everywhere I look, he is there, but not in a threatening way. More like a guardian angel way. I prefer his brother Gabriel though because he is very funny. I'm not kidding. He is sitting next to me right now. I know it must seem like I'm crazy or something or just making fun of the question, but I'm not. I'm being dead serious." John Fian. John Fian was a doctor and school teacher who was declared as a notorious sorcerer. He confessed to having a compact with Satan during the North Berwick witch trials in Scotland, which he confessed to King James as the trial proceedings were taking place, but later promised that he would renounce his compact with Satan and vow to lead the life of a Christian. But the next morning, he confessed the devil came to him in his cell dressed all in black and holding a white wand, demanding John continue his faithful service, according to his first oath and promise that he made. John testified that he renounced Satan to his face, saying, "Get thee behind me, thou Satan, and start pushing, for I have listened too much to thee, and by the same thou hast undone me, in respect whereof I will utterly undo you." He confessed that the devil then answered, "That once ere thou die, thou shalt be mine." The devil afterwards broke the white wand and immediately vanished from his sight. John then was given a chance to lead the life he promised, but the same night he stole a key to his cell and escaped. He was eventually captured and tortured until his execution on January 27th, 1591. And coming in at number 1 is General Jonathan Moulton. General Jonathan Moulton was born in the month of July 1726 and was not always extraordinarily wealthy. In the year 1749, he married his first wife and had 11 children with her. He soon settled in Hampton, Virginia, and surprisingly got filthy rich in no time. His sudden accumulation of so much wealth in such a short amount of time came as a surprise to the poor neighborhood, and it was alleged that he had made deals with the devil. Locals alleged that he had made a contract with the devil in which the devil was supposed to give him a boot full of gold. But Jonathan tore open the sole of the boot so that the boot would never be full of gold. When the devil learned that he was being tricked, he took revenge on him in the strangest way possible that cemented the face that they made a deal. Upon his death at the age of 61 years, his body went missing from the coffin, and instead the coffin was filled with with gold coins, having the seal of Satan himself. The locals buried the gold-filled coffin anyway. His body was never found, and no grave mark was put in its place.